stages. Who was Yavi Madurai, and what were the early experiences that shaped your voice, confidence, and resilience?
um, I was a very insecure, a very insecure, geeky young girl trying to make sense of the world, I think, and trying to figure out, where I fitted into things. And it comes down to we need to know our stuff. We need to be the ones writing Africa's future history, not other people.
Oh, great, great. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Explained a lot about this generation, Kodeseta. Just piling up the questions very well so that I can know which one to ask. Um, okay, okay. You've advised political leaders, corporate brands, and creatives. What was the core principle that remains constant designing influencing strategies across such diverse spaces?
I think it's all about remaining true to the core. So if you are saying things for the sake of saying things, your message is not going to land. I think it's very much around authenticity. So, you speak about, I will always say, never speak about something you don't know or that you're not passionate about or that you're not driven about. Because if you speak about something and you're saying it for the sake of saying it, it's not going to reach, it's not going to land. And remember, we're not saying things just for the sake of saying it. We are saying and doing things in order to have an impact. Otherwise, why do we bother, right? Why are you doing this podcast? You're doing it so that down the line, you know that you've got to put in, like you were saying to me earlier, you've got to put in the effort now in order to yield the benefits later on. So you want impact. You want to be able to impact young entrepreneurs. You want it to have some kind of impact. But if you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, there's going to be no impact. It's not going to be something that is going to land because that passion is not going to come through. So for me, it's a case of when I'm in advisory mode, shall I call it, I always think two things, or I always look at two things. What is the heart or the core of the matter that is, whether we're, writing a speech, whether they are speaking to the media, whether we are doing something like a project, or whether there's something big, whatever it may be, it's always best to be true to who you are. So like I will say to, there are people that I advise that English is not their first language. So, and then when they speak to the media, they get all, wound up because they're worried about their language and that their language is not perfect English. And my first thing to them would be, but English is not your first language. So right out the gate, say that. Human beings will engage with you. They will listen to you if you are authentic and if you are honest and you say, listen, I may, I'm answering you, but I may not get this completely right, because English is not my first language. I'm just giving you an example. So when it comes to more serious matters, it's the same thing though. It's the same concept, is that what is this truly about? If we're doing a project, are we doing the project for the right reasons? Are we engaging for something for the right reasons? And at the end of the day, if we are not doing this for the people, then we shouldn't be doing it at all, because what's we doing it?
What's your perspective on how African women can reclaim power, not just economically, but also psychologically and spiritually in systems that were never designed for them to win. But I argued on that sake in 2025.
Say that again. Say that last part again. You?
No, I said
So, so I have a thing. I have a philosophy. And all my girlfriends, if you're in my circle, in my sisterhood, I call it my sisterhood, then you know my philosophy on this. And I call it the MGS. It's called Melanin Girl Syndrome. Um, Women of color, black, brown, bronze, whatever color you want to call us. And remember, there's very little difference in terms of melanin women of all color, brown, and we start at the lightest brown and we go to the darkest brown, right? Because no one is truly, completely, and utterly one or the other. So if you remove races from it, the difference of melanin in people's skins have got nothing to do with our races, actually, scientifically speaking. It's the construct of man that gave us races. But anyway, so I call it melanin girl syndrome because unfortunately, the girls with melanin in their DNA, if you sit and if you put the various race groups together, and the reason I'm saying this to you is because I have friends from different tribes, different race groups from all across Africa, from all across the world. And having conversations with them has taught me one thing, is that girls with melanin in their skin have been raised in such a way that we were taught we were not necessarily enough from the get-go. We are not valuable enough. A boy is born into a family and they are valuable from day one. A girl is born and has to earn her value. She has to make herself something. She's got to do 10 times more in order to get attention to her male counterpart in that same family. And that, carries on. It perpetuates through life, whether it's at work, whether it's in your in-law family, whether it's in your friendship circles, it perpetuates through life. So I figured this out a couple of years ago. And I mean, I'm speaking from my own personal experience. And I was raised in a matriarchal family. I was taught that every woman is beautiful, that women have got far more to offer the world than the world allows them to give. So I was raised in a very matriarchal family. My grandmother was a paragon to me. The lessons she taught me in life is what you are hearing come out of my mouth now. But the thing about this was that they were all still, you had to be proper and you had to do the right thing. And till now, we judge women on whether they behave properly, whether they sit properly, whether they wear, and women are the worst judges of other women. And all of this perpetuates. And so we sit with a situation where women feel less. Even the most beautiful, intelligent, brilliant, confident woman feels less in some shape or form, in some way, at some point in their life, if not for most of their lives. So there's this philosophy of mine of MGS is that when it plays out, unfortunately, in spaces like the professional world and in spaces like marriages, in spaces like friendships, in spaces like partnerships, business partnerships, entrepreneurs. So we will never negotiate. For example, women will never negotiate to a maximum. A man will walk in and say, I'm willing to do A, B, and C. I want to be paid that much. A woman will never. It takes a lot for a woman to be able to say, I want to be paid that amount and I'm not willing to budge. I want to do this and I'm not willing to compromise on that. It takes a lot more. So what I found is that it's important, whether you're in the corporate world, whether you're in an entrepreneur, whether you are in boardrooms and spaces and conference rooms where you feel not one, you don't feel enough. it's a matter of standing there and saying, I am going to change the room that I am in first. So I have never believed that one little person, can change the continent. Even though it may sound like it, I may say, prosperity for all Africans in our lifetime, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and I want to do this and I want to do that. It may sound like that. But my philosophy is change the room that you are in at that moment. If you get one person to hear one thing that you have said, that alone determines that you feel more valuable, number one. But number two, you're also making a difference. And in making a difference is where we find our empowerment. When somebody says back to you, you saw me, you have seen me, you have understood me, you know what my needs are. It builds you one little bit at a time. It builds your confidence. It builds your ability to empower yourself if you didn't feel empowered. So this is all about the world around you, finding your own space. And before we become we have to understand me. So if you understand yourself first, and if you understand what it is that you want out of the world, and if you understand where you want to go and what impact you want to make, I guarantee you that ability to be able to claim your space, claim your power as women, as young women, it starts to adjust and it starts to happen. Things start to happen in you that you never believed would be possible. I was a geeky, insecure, frizzy head young girl many years ago, and it has subsequently changed along the way. And I'm raising a girl child born in Africa, and God forbid she ever feels like she can't make a difference or that she is less, then I have not done my job well.
In your own opinion, do you think women, basically, okay, everyone has their own genes, right? So I have
Sure.
this also philosophy of mine that, there's a science thing called the index ratio, right? So if you can hold your fingers like this, right? And it's
Yeah.
this finger here, and this one here,
The middle finger.
yes, that's one day, and this one. So if this one here
Yeah.
is a bit short, is a bit short or more shorter than the last one here on the right, on the left.
Oh, okay, so these two fingers, right? Yeah.
So it tracks your what's it called, your estrogen levels and testosterone levels. So it just shows
Oh,
your capability
wow.
of being a risk taker. Yeah, your entrepreneurial ability. So
Oh,
yeah, so
wow, you
that's
taught me something. Yeah, I'm gonna go
yeah,
look. I'm gonna go look further into
yeah.
this. Thank you for
Just search,
teaching me that.
yeah, search the hand index ratio. I think it will show you if you are a risk taker or not, and if someone is more risk averse, you could say, don't get into entrepreneurship because yeah, I've actually asked someone and they actually proved me right. So
Wow, I'm gonna go do that. Thank you for teaching me that. I'm gonna go research into that. Thank you.
yeah,
Okay, but
it's not
back to
palm
your
reading.
question. Sorry, I
It's not
sidetracked you.
yeah, it's not palm reading. It's science. So I
Yeah,
wanna get into that because you speak about you think mostly women are gonna venture into being corporate leaders or businesswomen. So I kind of argue in terms of that because I feel like genes, you can never argue against genes. Genes are always dominant. You know, most women are gonna have, those is more estrogen levels compared to males. Because we are actually those dominant figures
sure.
in human species for sure. So that was bit of my argument on those terms. I don't know if you have something to say against arguing against your genes or.
Of course, I have something to say. But very quickly, You know, as much as it's about dominance, especially in a working world, right? But there is an argument for soft power. And the soft power ability is what we're going to see emerge more and more now. In a world that is being turned upside down, we don't know tomorrow what is going to happen. Now is the time for soft power to emerge. And so you are thinking about this. You were saying to me, there's more and more women that are sitting on Forbes lists, and there are more women, in male-dominated industries. And it's like women are just everywhere. And the reason for that is because the time for soft power is now. And I mean, we don't have a lot of time to go into it, but the reason why women seem to be thriving more now is because the timing is right for soft power. And when I say soft power, I don't mean weak. I mean that women just have a better ability to be able to deal with things or certain things in a very specific way. Because we, as you said, we have more estrogen than we have testosterone, and that allows us to be able to have things like empathy, or more empathy rather. It's not like a man doesn't have empathy, or the ability to see things from a different perspective. Most women have a maternal instinct. I'm an actual mother, but I don't necessarily have a maternal instinct all the time. But it's a matter of being able to understand, and that nurturing, that ability to see the youth and go, but we can't let this happen. We need to do something about it. We may not be able to benefit from whatever it is that we are doing, but if our children benefit from it, then it's okay. And so it's these kind of things that is why you are seeing women thrive more and more in today's world. It's because the timing is right. The circumstances are right. We are the fixers of the world. We carry the burdens of certain things in very different ways to a man. So right now, this chaos that is prevailing in the world is actually the perfect time for women to access all of their soft power and to be able to use it when there is so much dominance from a war perspective and everything, people are bombing each other and doing what they are doing. Women come in as the peacemakers. Women come in as the ability to nurture, to feed, to bring people together. So do you see what I'm saying? So the reason why the time and space and place for women right now is because of the fact of our soft power.
You've mentioned before that Africa doesn't need saving, it needs reclaiming. Oh, we talked about that, right?
Yes.
Um,
No, we didn't. We didn't. I
what?
alluded to
Okay,
it, but yeah.
okay, yeah, yeah, for sure. What does reclaiming look like in practice for individuals, businesses, and continent as a whole?
It's valuing ourselves. I don't know how other way to say this. I don't, there's no other way to say this. I get so annoyed when I speak to other people and they're looking for permission from other parts of the world. It's like the world needs to give us permission to do things in our own continent. We need to be able in our own countries. And because aid has been our income and our revenue and our economic strategies for so many years, the best gift that Trump ever gave us was to cut aid. Obviously, he didn't have to be so harsh. He didn't have to do it so, so swiftly, all of these kind of things. But in the long run, the best way for us to be able to understand our own power and that we are the richest, poorest continent in the world. How is that even possible when you think about it? So, do you remember in Trump's previous administration, when the US, well, Trump and the US and Huawei, do you remember the trade war that started with that? And I remember standing at some conference and saying to them, China and the US are in a trade war. I mean, right now it's so bad that, you can't even call it a war, it's far worse. But back in those days, I remember standing at a conference and going, you know, China and the US are in a trade war, but actually no phone would be able to be made without Africa. So we don't understand, because of our cobalt, because of our uranium, because of all of the bits and pieces that go into technology, for example. So AI is being spoken about and claimed by other parts of the world. But the power and the resources that is required for AI comes from Africa. They are not going to be able to fully implement AI without Africa. So when you start to think about those kind of things, I am extremely proud. I consider it a privilege to be born of the richest continent in the world. It's time for us to understand that we are already wealthy. We are already prosperous. It's how we manage it that becomes the issue. It's how we start to understand and feel aspirational about it. We don't think of ourselves as aspirational or inspirational. We don't think of ourselves as being more. We think about ourselves as being less, because we've always received and identified and looked for aid. So we had an aid mentality. But there are three words that define my philosophy. And my philosophy is trade, not aid, or trade for aid. So in other words, teach us, help us, buy from us. Don't give us a plate of food. Teach us how to fish so we can feed ourselves. Allow us to be able to trade with you, not come and give us something that you have then power over us because you continually allow us to give us a plate of food. This is not what we are wanting to be able to do. We don't want the future generations to continuously use aid as a source of revenue. So the world is upside down right now. It is possibly the best thing to happen to Africa in order for this topsy-turvy nature to, once it starts to stabilize, once we start, people are dying from the lack of funding and aid and donor cuts. This is the unfortunate truth. But by the same token, have we ever asked ourselves the question, why did we make aid our revenue, a source of revenue? Why did we create so much reliance on it that when it was held in other people's hands, we didn't give ourselves the chance to be able to develop it for ourselves? But you know what? Now that they have cut aid, now that they have taken away all of that funding, they've also taken away their own power over us. So it's time we understood our own power, and that we need to understand what is in our ground, what is beneath our feet, that we need to be able to manage properly so that our children can be prosperous. You know, there's a quick story I tell around, because you know me and this whole women empowerment and women equality and equity narrative that I drive. So I always say that Mother Nature blessed her sister, Mother Africa, with all the riches in the world. It's time the heirs, as in all of us, we are heirs. It's time that we understood how to manage our wealth, because we have been given riches beyond our wildest dreams. We just don't know how to manage our wealth. And so the day we realize that, it's not about understanding Africa is not poor. We are poverty-stricken, but we are not poor.
Thank you so much. In closing off, just two sentences. When the story of your life is told, in 50 years' time, like what's one sentence you hope will define your contribution?
I always picture that, so whenever I do something, I always picture my daughter standing up one day and when I'm gone. And so my thing is to make her proud enough to stand up one day and say, my mother did that. And that is the fact that we need to change our view of ourselves and our continent. I know that sounds almost insignificant, but the day we realize that we are wealthy beyond measure, the day we realize that we just need to get stuck into ourselves and we need to start converting what is beneath our feet, what is in our ground, what Mother Africa has called upon us to do, her children, and that we need to answer that. So one day it would be about whether I answered the call, and I've already answered the call. So I would like for my daughter to be able to say, my mother did this. There were certain lives that were saved. Women were given that, in terms of access to finance, or women economic inclusion, or something. So things have to be tangible. You can't measure something that's not tangible. So you can't manage something, you can't speak about something that is just narrative. It has to be tangible. So that is what I would want one day, is for her to be able, my daughter to be able to stand up and say, my mother contributed to that, whatever that may be.
Thank you so much. It was great interviewing you today.
Thank you. It was lovely to chat to you.